This striking self-portrait is in the Belvedere Museum in Vienna. It was painted in 1898 by the Austrian artist Marie Wunsch. Its title is Selbstbildnis an der Staffelei, Self-Portrait at the Easel. Here is a highly skilled and professional artist at the height of her powers, the tools of her trade in her hands. She stands erect, her eyes holding the viewer as firmly as she holds her palette and brushes. This painting is a moderate size, just under 1 meter in height unframed, and shows the upper portion of her figure. The focus is very much on the artist herself. It is a powerful picture, but also poignant, because it dates from the last few months of Marie Wunsch's life. Born in Vienna on 17th July 1862, she died in Merano in northern Italy on 29th March 1898 at the age of 35. She suffered from tuberculosis and had been in poor health throughout her adult life. As a girl growing up in Vienna, Marie showed early artistic talent, and, with her 2 older sisters, Helena, the eldest, and Margit, received lessons in painting and drawing. Marie quickly formed an ambition to become a professional artist. She was from a respectable, upper-middle-class Viennese family. Her father, who died when she was 8, had been an official of the Austrian court, and drawing and watercolour painting were considered appropriate recreational activities for girls and women of her class and background. Professional training, leading to an artistic career, however, was a very different thing. It appears that Marie had to overcome some initial opposition from within her family to her artistic ambitions. A career in music, rather than the visual arts, had been their aim for her, but it is also clear that her mother later supported both Marie and her sister Margit, who became a sculptor, in their artistic careers. Women in Austria in the late 19th century had little access to formal training in the arts. The Vienna Academy of Fine Arts did not admit women students until 1920, although some academicians took female students privately. The Applied Art School, affiliated to the Imperial and Royal Austrian Museum for Art and Industry, which had been founded in 1867, did accept women, and Marie Wunsch studied there for 2 years, until 1882. In that year she travelled to Italy for the sake of her health, settling with her mother in Venice. In 1892 she moved to Munich, where she painted and exhibited successfully, before returning to Italy and establishing a studio at Merano in the South Tyrol, living there until her death. Her career was thus a very short one, but she achieved great success. She was a genre artist, a painter of scenes of everyday life, specializing in paintings of children and childhood, subject matter for which she became celebrated and commercially successful. Her work appealed to sentiment, but generally avoided sentimentality. Her children exist on their own terms. They have individuality. They live their own lives in her pictures, rather than performing for the onlooker in order to induce an emotional response, although, of course, her pictures do produce such a response, which was the key to their appeal. A newspaper article devoted to Marie Wunsch in the Vienna Neue Freie Presse of 9th July 1895 described one of her paintings of children playing. Not only is the subject of this picture, with its many figures, highly entertaining, it also displays typically different children's faces, filled with jubilant joyfulness and hidden fear, boldness and eagerness. Her works were very popular. The originals readily found buyers, and she reached a huge audience through engravings and photographic reproductions, which were published in magazines and issued as prints and postcards. This was a golden age of illustrated magazines, and German and Austrian publishers were particularly adept at exploiting new printing technologies and producing cheap, richly illustrated periodicals in high volumes. Many women artists and illustrators in particular across the world were able to establish professional careers on the basis of the demand this created for suitable artwork. Marie Wunsch's work was published in mass circulation titles such as Die Gartenlaube, Illustrierte Zeitung, and Über Land und Meer. The widespread popularity of her work kept her busy in her Murano studio, so busy indeed that she protested that sie will nicht Fabrikantin werden, sondern Künstlerin bleiben. She wanted to stay an artist and not become a manufacturer. This self-portrait, then, completed in the last few months of her life, can be seen as an assertion of her identity as an artist and of her pride in her status and her profession. Her professional demeanour is emphasized by her hair, worn up and out of the way, and her stylish but practical, close-fitting green velvet jacket. She has not included the apron she would certainly have worn over her clothes while working in this portrait, perhaps for aesthetic reasons, perhaps precisely to display clothes which express her femininity as well as her professionalism. Many self-portraits by women artists across the centuries similarly make the point that a successful woman artist is no less of a woman for being an artist. Her thin and finely sculpted face is strikingly pale, and her eyes large and lustrous. These may be the signs of her illness, but they also give her a powerful presence. It is a beautiful face, fragile but full of inner strength, the dark of the background making it glow like a bright cameo worn on dark velvet. Behind her are works in progress, a large, partially painted canvas, and a small canvas on an easel with its back turned to the viewer. These details create the atmosphere of a busy, productive studio, despite the dark and largely empty background that fills most of the picture. Wunsch grips a fistful of brushes of different sizes and shapes and a maul stick to help support her hand as she paints. The edge of her palette juts towards us, the wet paint catching the light as she moves, leading the viewer's eye into the busy lower right corner of the picture, where all the activity is focused. Its concentration of busy, intersecting diagonals, contrasting with the cool stillness of the figure and the dark spaces of the upper portions of the canvas. She is poised and still, but her figure is given dynamism by the way she leans forward very slightly from the waist, with head inclined, as if just turning from her work to survey the mirrored reflection she is working from, before bending towards the canvas to touch in one last detail. She has turned slightly towards us to settle her cool, measuring gaze upon us, and, of course, upon herself. Her right eye, in reality her left eye, as this is a mirror image, is placed directly upon the vertical centerline of the canvas, showing the commanding importance of the gaze in this portrait. The diagonal lines formed by her brushes, the edge of her palette, and the brush she is painting with, create lines of energy, a vector of artistic creativity, leading the eye towards the focus of her work, the canvas upon which she is painting, the canvas we cannot see because it is beyond the edge of the picture, but which of course we can see, because it is the canvas we are looking at. Despite the shortness of her career, Marie Wunsch was in her day a very successful and well-known artist, but today she is almost entirely forgotten. Art history has little interest in the type of work she produced, with its perceived popular sentimentality, its conservatism, its lack of artistic innovation, its failure to align with those great trajectories of 19th and early 20th century artistic progress that led to modernism. She was not a modernist. Yet she was modern. It was the printing press, mass circulation publications, the highly developed, technologically advanced and modern systems of media production and distribution which made her career possible. This was also a very feminine modernity. in which women artists in particular were able to benefit from the opportunities offered by the expansion of periodicals and popular prints, forms of cultural production and dissemination very much associated with the feminine domestic sphere, and appealing directly to a strongly female market. This is a very different art historical context from that of the big-name men of modernism, but it is a vitally important one. The art Marie Wunsch and artists like her produced was more widely distributed and touched countless more lives than the works of many better-known figures celebrated in art history today. Yet even if Marie Wunsch is remembered for no other reason, she should be remembered for this self-portrait, which, since the day she painted it, not long before she died, has looked out at the world with style, dignity, and justified professional pride.